Let's make some cute baby booties. Today we've got our Marshmallow Moccasin baby booties, and these are patterned after the fun and popular Marshmallow Baby Blanket or Marshmallow Crochet Baby Blanket pattern that we have here at GoodKnit Kisses that everyone has just loved so much for the last 10 years. And I wanted to make 3 different sizes here. We've got 0 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, and 6 to 12 months. Of course, you can adjust it for your own size of your baby, maybe add an elastic to the back. They're meant to be for warmth and for fun and style, but they're not necessarily walking shoes. They're just booties. So join me today and we'll make them. You can grab your crochet hook, an H hook, and some medium weight yarn, which I think most people have. Let's begin. Welcome to GoodKnit Kisses. We're all about helping you stitch your love and love your stitches. To get the written instructions, we have our free blog down below in the video description. There is a link, or you can download the pattern ad-free for a discount on our website or get it on our Ravelry and Etsy stores. We also have a right and left-handed video down below, so click that link to go there. And for the tools and things you're going to need, the specifics on our website, you're going to need 2 locking stitch markers. You can get 4 if you decide you want to make your booties like 2 booties and then mark the stitch markers and then do this fold over technique, which gives you a right and a left pair. So anywhere from 2 to 4 locking stitch markers would be preferable. And then you've got your needle and your measuring tape and your scissors. All right, grab your supplies and the pattern and we'll begin. This pattern works with the right and the left side first, and then the footbed sole is added onto the foundation, and then you work that part. And then we fold them over, so it forms a T, but they fold over, and then you stitch together the sides and the toe or end here. And then you just make a second one and fold it over in the opposite direction, so you have a right and a left booty. So we're going to begin. Let's start with a slip knot, and you're going to measure 18 inches out. Begin both of your sections that we'll do. The yarn is going to be cut after we do the sides, and then we're going to add more yarn on. So every time you do that, make an 18-inch tail, and that's going to be used for sewing later. So begin here, and we're going to chain. So for the smaller pair, we're going to chain 26. For the medium, we're going to chain 32, and for the large, 44. Okay, so I've made my stitches. I have 26 here, and if you saw, I was intentionally loose. We're going to be working into the back stitch back here. And some people don't like that, but it works out really well for this pattern. If you don't go into the back stitch, it leaves some holes or gaps on the side of your booty, which you really don't want, especially if you're wanting these for warmth. So go ahead and pause your video if you need to redo that, if it's too tight, or just pause it if you need to catch up with making a larger one. So once you have your chain, you're going to turn it over to the back, and you notice that little extra bump back here. Now the first one is right behind your hook, and you're not going to use that first one. So we're skipping it and going into the second one. It's right here. You may have to use your finger to guide it, and if you were loose enough, you can get it straight through there. So we're going to yarn over and pull up a stitch, or pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through, and we're going to create a single crochet here. So once we have our first one made, it turns this chain around. Sorry, let me get some extra yarn. It turns this chain around so you can see it a bit better. So we're just going to insert our hook through that next loop and go through the back stitch. This yarn splits on me a little bit, so there we go. Yarn over, pull through. You've got 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through, and you have a single crochet. So you're going to single crochet through the back stitch all the way down to the end, and you'll have 1 stitch left or less than you started with. So if you had 26, you'll have 25. If you had 32, you'll have 31. And if you had 44, you'll have 43. All right, so continue that on, pause your video, and I'll see you at the end. Okay, we're down to the end. I've got one last stitch here, this back hump or back stitch in that chain. Okay, so now we're ready for row 2. That was just our foundation row, and you're going to end up stitching the sole in the middle here when we finish this top part. All right, so you're going to chain 2 and turn. Chain 1, 2, and turn. And now we're going to double crochet into this very first stitch down here. So yarn over, put your hook through that stitch, both parts of the V, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That's 1 double crochet in that stitch. And now we're going to yarn over and do that one more time in that same stitch. So 2 double crochet in that same stitch. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. All right, so that makes 1 textured stitch. That's what it looks like at the very beginning. All of the rest of them are a single crochet and 2 doubles. So we're going to skip the next 2 stitches. So you got 1, 2. We're going to go into the third one and yarn over, pull up a loop, and single crochet. So yarn over, pull through 2. There's your single. Yarn over, insert into that hole there, that stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Do another double crochet into there, pull through 2 and 2. That is your textured stitch or your marshmallow stitch. Now you're not going to really see the full effect of the marshmallow until you do a few rows, okay? So you're just going to continue by skipping the next 2 stitches and going into the third and a single crochet, double double into that same stitch. I love this yarn when it works up, but when I'm working with it, it splits. So it's so soft, it's so pretty, and it's worth it in the end, but man, it's annoying. So you may see me split my yarn. Okay, 1, 2, okay, and then go into the third, single, oh, pull through, double, and double. Okay, so you're going to continue that pattern. You can see it has this wavy line, and you're going to get that wavy line at the very top of your baby booty. That's that little feature. So continue going all the way down to the end, and when you get to the last stitch, you're going to single crochet. I'll meet you at that spot. Pause your video, and I'll see you there. Okay, we've come down to the end, and you have 3 stitches left. Now, it may look like you only have 2, but you actually have 1, 2, and then 3. And I pulled this one out a little bit. This was my turning chain, and you're going to want to go in here, and you may have to use your fingers to kind of get in there, your little fingertip, to go all the way through and pull through. And if it's just too tight, then go through the second one. But I intentionally did it that way to, I don't know, it makes the end a little bit nicer for these baby booties. So pull through, and it kind of pulls up a little bit down here, but this is your very first stitch of your chain here when you start measuring. So it's going to curve up just a little bit, and that's okay. All right, so we're at the end, and we're going to start our repeat, and it's going to be easier to go into the end of these stitches here in a moment. So you're just repeating row 2 twice for the small, 3 times for the medium, and 4 times for the large or the larger sizes. So I'm going to chain 2, and we're going to turn, and we're going to go into this next stitch, or the very first stitch here, and yarn over and go into the first stitch and double crochet twice. So our turning chain is our single crochet, and then we have 2 doubles in that same stitch, just like we did on row 2. And then you see we have this hump here. It's actually 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3. We're going into the third, which is right where this little valley is here. So go into that stitch, pull up a loop, and single crochet. And then yarn over and do 2 double crochets in that little valley, that same stitch. And then this becomes very repetitive and easy, because you're just going to see every time you see that little dip, that little valley, you're going to do single crochet and 2 doubles. Okay, so here I am. Let me slow it down a little bit. If you want to see my Marshmallow Crochet Baby Blanket video, that will really show you this stitch. But if you know this one, you probably already got this down. So go down here. So you're skipping these 2 stitches, go here, single crochet, yarn over, and do 2 doubles in that same spot. And continue going all the way down. Make sure you have the 2 doubles. And if you're not sure, you just kind of feel them with your fingers that you have 3 stitches here, and then come down. Depends on the yarn you're using, I think. So I'm going to keep going since mine is a smaller one. Pause your video if you need to, or you can use your speed controls and control that playback. Go slow, go fast, whatever you need. Okay, this is my last texture stitch. This is 3 before the end, or technically 4 before the end. Okay. Skip 2 stitches, go down to that very last one. You can see clearly now. Go in there and just a single crochet. All right, so I now have 2 rows of this stitch. It's not really super bumpy yet. You can see it kind of bump out a little bit, and then when we get our next row in there, you're going to see that. Okay, so go ahead and chain 2. We're repeating that row. 1, 2, and turn, yarn over, go into that first stitch, 2 double crochet. Okay, and then go to the next, single crochet, double double. Okay, and continue going until the end. Pause your video, and when you get to the right amount of rows, I'll see you on this last one, and we'll fasten it off and begin the sole, that middle part here. Okay, so again, if you're working on the smallest size, you just finish this row we just begun and you're done. And then the next 2 rows, the next 2 sizes, you'll do either 4 rows of this stitch, or you do 5 rows of it. I'm not counting the single crochet, I'm just counting the marshmallow. So if you need a count, you can see that there's a texture stitch with 3 stitches leading this way. That's 1 row. Then this one leads this way. That's a 2nd row. And then this one leads that way. And that's the 3rd row. All right. So 3, 4, 5 rows, depending on your size. Pause your video. I'll see you there. So I'm down at the end, making my last single crochet. And we're going to pull through a 12-inch tail. You can do longer if you want. It's not really necessary, but make sure you have at least a 12-inch tail. I'm just going to pull this out, measure it. And this will be used for sewing the toe later on. Okay, go ahead and pull that out. All right, so we're going to lay this out. I kind of stretch out the bottom part, make sure my chain is nice and flat. It doesn't matter which side you lay this on. I usually lay it with my tail beginning at that side. I don't know why, that's just what I do. Depending upon the size you have, the tail will be on the right side for the bottom and smallest pieces, bottom and smallest sizes, and this tail, the ending tail, will be on the other side for the middle size. Okay, so now we're going to use our measuring tape and our stitch markers, and we're going to measure out what we need for this pattern for each size. So if you're using the small one, you're going to measure, let's see, we've got, actually a quick measurement here is the height here. So like, let's say you're using a different hook than I am, and you're like, I need to make sure I have the right height. That's listed in our pattern. And if you're on the left-handed video, this is going to show my numbers reversed. Sorry, just listen to the audio or make sure you got the pattern. But it basically goes to about 1.5 inches to the tallest part. And that's for the smaller size, then 1.75 and 2 inches for the other sizes. Okay, so the booty sole, we're going to measure from each end of this foundation row 2.25 inches, 2.75, or 4.25. So here we go. We're going to do I'm sorry, this one is, yeah, 2.25. So I'm going from the very end. right here. And so that lines up here nicely, and place in my stitch marker that's locking. Go from the other side. Remember, it kind of went up a little bit, so your first stitch is actually here, and we're doing 2.25, and put my locking marker. And then we're going to double check the pattern, and we're going to make sure we have the right amount of stitches in between, because we're going to only use a certain number of stitches. I'm using 7 on this particular one, but you'll want to do 9 on the medium and 19 in between the markers for the largest size. So making sure to leave 7 stitches in the middle. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Make sure I counted that right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my 7th one is going to be this stitch marker. So let me just move it down 1. It's okay if it's kind of fudged a little bit, but it's basically in the middle. And this has a little bit, you know, of forgiving in here. Okay, so now we're going to pull out our tail of 18 inches to begin. And also you could choose to stop here and go ahead and make 1 more of these sides for your second booty. And then use 2 more stitch markers to just place that on top and mark the next 2. And that's really easy. And then you don't have to measure the second one. So there's my quick little interrupting tip. Okay, so I'm going to measure out 18 inches, just about. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just enough for sewing. Okay, and instead of making a slip knot, I'm just going to fasten on here using this in the back. So I'm just going to go through this first stitch here. Okay, we're going to slip stitch here and pull on the tail to tighten that up. And we're going to go into this very first stitch to single crochet. So go back into that same stitch, pull up a loop, and make sure it's the same height as that loop there, because we want to make sure this is nice and tall and get an even size here. So yarn through, or yarn over, pull through. That's 1 single crochet. Go to the next one and single crochet across until you hit that last stitch marker. So the small size again will have 7 stitches, the medium will have 9, and the larger will have 19. And if you are trying to work with a different hook and you're not getting the right sizes, that stitch size may vary, or the amount of stitches may vary. You want to get this middle part measured to the right size. And so we have a diagram that has all the measurements for the height, and also the widths and lengths and everything for the different components or parts of this. So if you want to use a different stitch pattern to make a booty similar, you can use those. Okay. All right. So we've gone down to the end. We don't need our markers anymore. We're just going to continue working this stitch here with single crochet across. So that was our row 1. And now row 2, we're just going to chain 1 and turn and single crochet in that first stitch. And then we're going to single crochet, just repeating that across. Okay. So continue on until you get to the length of the footbed that you need. So for the different sizes, you're going to have, you're going to reach 2.25 inches here. And for the medium, you're going to have 3.25 inches, and the larger is 4.25 inches. And then you're going to fasten that off and leave a 12-inch tail for seaming. So when you get to that point, pause your video, meet me, and I'll show you it in that T formation, and we'll fold it over and do the seaming together. We'll see you soon. Okay, so I've come down to the end and gotten my measuring tape out and measured to the correct length, and basically I put it down at the end and see where it falls along where this foundation line is. And we want to be at 2.25. Here we go, 2.25. It's basically right there. If I went 1 more stitch over, it would be well over there, and we don't want that. These parts are going to be aligned, these side parts. Okay, so I've already pulled out my tail. It's about 12 inches. We're going to cut that. And I'm going to lay this out and show you what this should look like. Now you could have taken your stitch markers off. I left them on for a reason so you can see something else. So here we go. This is our piece. And again, if I flip it how I had it earlier, I've got my cast on part where I started my original tail. Here's where I ended. Okay, so now you can see it how it was. Here's the T. Let me get my hands out of the way. All right, so we're going to do our fold over. So we have our sides here, and this side is going to be, now my video is flipped to left and right. So actually, maybe I should flip it back over here. Okay, so this side, which is on my left, will be the right side of the shoe because this is the back. And when we do this and we fold this over, you can see that this is the right side of our shoe or our booty. And then when I do this, that's the left side of the foot, okay? So what we're gonna do is fold these over and just make a decision. So if you take the right side, well, this is actually the left side technically, but on my right hand of my screen, we're gonna fold this over like this and then stitch together this side here. On the diagram, it's labeled side C. This part here is it's called left side, and it says side C. So side C is going to go alongside D here and fold over and be stitched. Okay, and then we're going to be folding this one over, side C on the right side, and fold it over like this, and that's how we get our little foot booty. And then the next one, you're going to start on this side and stitch this together, and then you'll stitch this one on top. So it's just opposite, or you can flip it over if you want the tails on the other direction. So with these stitch markers on here, you can see I can pull that off, go ahead and fold over this side as we were going to do before, making sure your tails are on the outside. And now I can take my stitch marker and find the edges or ends and just put my locking marker there. So I know that this one started with this fold over. If you want to go ahead and make your other baby booty now, and then when you come to this point, then you can just fold the other one and use the other stitch marker and lock that into place. And then you know which one's going to be right and which one's going to be left. Okay, so there's that. Now let's begin sewing this in. So we're going to use our tapestry needle. I'm going to start over on this end over here and pull up my long strand. This one's 18 inches, 18-inch tail. And we're just going to do a whip stitch, okay? Make sure the ends line up and go ahead and go in from the bottom where the two little V stitches are and go up through the top where the little V stitches are. And you may not necessarily see the V, but make sure you're going through 2 stitches on the bottom of the sole part. Pull through, and then when you come back down through the bottom to the top again, it makes a whip stitch. So you can see it pull through, and this little part whips around the front like that and closes it up. And then come down again. So you just make simple stitches all the way down. And if you feel like you were too loose, you can come back and tighten those up with your needle. It's just a blunt tapestry needle, and continue going. Now the little one's going to sew up really fast. Pause your video as you need for yours. Okay, and go ahead and take my stitch marker off. Okay, so we come down to the end, and this was pulled all the way through, but you can see it's kind of loose, so I just kind of pull back on it. I want to go through that stitch and the end again and get that tail locked in there. Okay, so now we've got this edge done, and making it a whip stitch here makes it to where there is no seam on the inside. So this is nice and smooth. There's nothing going to be rough for baby. And then continue folding this over, and you can continue working with this long tail, or you can use this other one later on. But I'm just going to sew in the side of our side here to the toe or the sole until I run out of room or run out of things to sew together. And then I can just work my way back and fasten that off. And what I like to do is just go on the inside and maybe come through a stitch and pull through a loop, and maybe go through another one and then cut it. Okay. So you can fasten it off whatever way you like. I'm going to flip it back over, and now we need to work with our other 3 tails. Go ahead and fold over this next piece. I'm going to flip this strand out this way so I can access it. I'm going to turn this down, and now we're folding this over, and we're going to use the tail that's coming out from there to sew it up in this direction. Oh, yeah, sorry. All right, so I'm going to come down to this opposite side and line up my ends and whip stitch all the way down. I love this part because you can see it really coming together. Okay, so at the end down here, you might have a little piece that pops out. Mine doesn't do it this time, but sometimes I've had it do it, and so I might go through another stitch and kind of work my way up and around here, kind of go inside, okay, to make that not pop out, and then you can just sew up the back of it and get that in there. You could come all the way down and use the rest of this tail, or just use this opportunity to go ahead and fasten this off on the inside, because you've got plenty of tails to do that with. All right, I'll make one of my little loops, make another one, and cut it off. Okay, so I have 2 tails, and you might be thinking, I don't understand, why do you have one tucked this way? You'll see that in just a moment. The one that's at the end over here, now I'm going to go across again and pick up this last part, and we're going to leave this other tail for something else. Let's stitch together this last part. So you're going to make a few stitches, not overlapping anything, just to get to that, and then get to the corner of that side, and then stitch these together. And sometimes I just use half a stitch, or it feels like half a stitch of the top part of that toe here, because it's now going to be too thick if you go through everything. And you're just tacking that down. And when you get down to the end where there's no overlap, you can just go through both stitches here. Okay. And then go back through a few more in the opposite direction, and then weave in the remaining tails. You weave it in that single crochet area, it's a bit easier. And then you could pull it through the inside to cut off that tail. Oop. I'm just getting the rest of this tail in here. Oh, I was trying to go through that loop and I missed it. Let me do another one. There we go. Leave a little loop and then go back through it. All right, cut that off. Don't cut it too short or it'll pop back to the other side. Now we have one remaining tail, and it looks like this is just too open. So how we solve that is with our last tail. And your tails may be in a different spot. Just use them wherever you like. It's mainly just to get the sides put in and then the toe. Okay, so we've got this part, it belongs on the bottom. So I'm going to come up and through the bottom about where that would have crossed over and pull through. Okay. And then now we're going to put our finger inside the booty so that we don't go all the way through the sole. We're protecting the sole from this. And with a blunt tapestry needle, this works. All right, so we're at the end there. I'm going to come all the way down and kind of do a bit of a back stitch here. Go down. I'm hitting my finger under here, and then I'm pushing back up to get it to the top. And we're going all the way to this little edge, the pretty edge. Okay, so just before the chains, and I'm going to go down and getting this fabric too, so I can come up and get them to go together. Okay, and then I'm going to come back a little bit and then come up forward. That's what I'm talking about, a back stitch. If you want to look up how to do a back stitch, it's harder to show here. So now I'm going to come back from where my yarn was here, go down, get through both pieces of fabric, come up through both pieces of fabric. And now I've connected those pieces, so those aren't going anywhere. And then now, depending upon the baby's foot size, you may want to tighten this up or leave it this loose. If you need to leave it this loose, you can just simply come back down and come all the way through. Okay. And then you can just weave in that tail together and fasten it off if this is the right amount. If you don't know, you can simply just pull this out right now, leave it here, and then tuck it inside. And when you meet the baby, you can actually get it to the desired amount that you want. Okay, you can leave this tail and say, hey, this is how you finish it off. You could send them this video and kind of show them how that they can stitch the rest of it together. Or you can do that and then someone can sew it in more later. Or you can even add, like, these are other finishing techniques you could do. You could add in like a little bit on the larger one, you could add in a little bit of elastic at the back, you know, to kind of make it pull in a little bit more. So it just depends on what you want to do, but definitely test it out and put it in the foot. Put the foot in, make sure it can easily come in and out without it just popping off. And there you have it. So once you're done with that, just go ahead and sew in the remaining and you have your baby booty. And make your right and make your left. This is generally the right and this is the left. Whoops, I grabbed the wrong one. There we go. These are my pair that I made earlier, a right and a left. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Please comment down below and tell me which size you made and if you've made a matching Marshmallow Crochet Baby Blanket. We'll see you soon again on GoodKnit Kisses. Bye everyone. Thanks for joining us today, where we help you stitch your love and love your stitches. See you again soon.